The first one.
right?
We're gonna make meetings. We got cool challenge coins again.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I still have the original one
that's what,
still in my purse.
yeah, Jim and I were just talking about that.
That's exactly right. Right? I know, I'm glad you told me yesterday. I'm glad you told me yesterday you were doing this. Right? Yeah, in October. So I'm under restrictions through the end of next week. And then I'm
Okay.
restrictions, but I'm doing pretty well.
Oh yeah, she has good
And then I go
reason
on a
to.
week's vacation and then I should be good to go. Good question.
That's federal crime.
That's a baby.
That's federal.
Those two sit next to each other so I can take a.
I was saying to me, "What are you doing?"
Must be one of the Oh, maybe this is the breakfast baby.
No. They're here incognito.
Got it. Okay.
No, that would be true.
But I'm in the hospital.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I had a question on this. I went back and checked my notes.
Yeah, it's got five.
Sit down. Kristen, will you sit still for a minute?
Huh? That's a good question.
Nope.
I don't have the answer for it.
I don't either. What?
So they're doing very fair. Right? So I take two of those.
Buster causing trouble.
How old is she?
You know, it's going to be really interesting.
Hi, little person.
You know, if you do a three-way race, you just never know.
I have not.
Depends on who's this, what's that?
Wait a minute. Have you heard from her?
Have not.
Have not.
So it just depends on how the votes. Oh, did you? They'll probably be just late.
Maybe he's just running late.
I mean, for the rest of it, it's just there's four people for three spots, so two of them are crazy. Literally.
Lay down and go to sleep right now.
I know. I've been wanting to take a nap all day.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I know.
spent.
I like the rose on the beach.
Spent my whole day up on a ladder.
Yeah, kind of hard to take a nap. Did you text Costa?
I really, I could do it right there.
I mean, it's like a bubble wrap.
Give me your bubble wrap.
No, I'm too scared.
That's what my stepson does. He does window washing for the high-rise buildings.
Yeah, but at least you're on a scaffold. So it won't
No.
be- He's a hanger?
Yeah. And he uses a ladder.
Snap back now.
Nope.
You guys are too
Maybe
Oh, yeah, so do I. Big deal.
Take the hardest thing.
Big deal, no kidding. That job up there in that I had never seen
I wish they had like big ones with
Bob
punch.
just showed me.
They goes missing a lot.
I'm not surprised to hear that. You're like, you wouldn't think a plastic factory would have such a high theft rate, but
Almost all of
in
them.
bubble.
Like I used to like
in a week.
5.5 days. We busted our asses. And I charged them accordingly.
You kind of missed a full house today.
Oh, man. And he called me up yesterday. He's like, when you going
What
back?
is this? What happened to you, Mom?
I was like, what?
I recognize the Mew Moo, but the hair's
Got a
too
list of
short.
stuff. Set it up. We're there. Then we're going to do Steve McGann, I
mean, it's fabulous.
St. Nicholas.
Okay, they still have it.
Look at the baby.
Tori's gonna
She's
read.
so cute, is it?
It looks kind of,
Their plan.
it looks a little orphan Annie. I mean, you can play dual roles. Oh, yeah, so it's, yeah.
That's where he was
fluff.
So that microphone is on.
Yeah, he had all intentions of going back to Tahoe.
I already recorded.
So much cuter when she does it. Right, right.
You know how that works?
You know, I saw it.
Give it to his kid. Kids. He's got a bunch of kids.
Incognito? Incognito? Didn't do that to me.
If you come in wearing a muumuu at our next meeting.
Women's Memorial.
I'm not complaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Harrington.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Musgrave.
Here.
Brandon.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Kyer.
Here.
Delaney.
Here, we have a quorum. Consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. What is the pleasure of council?
Can I ask a quick question?
Certainly.
Is this Holly's Mischief Magic replacing Halloween?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of the question?
Is number 5 Holly's Mischief Magic replacing Halloween?
I don't believe so. Mr. Walker, is that replacing
It is not.
Halloween?
It's a
No, it's
separate
just, okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, and so actually, as long as you brought that up, so the Parks Commission contacted me, and they have not turned in their Halloween event yet. They just turned it in today, actually, so it didn't make this council packet. What I advised them was that I would let council know that they did indeed turn in a special event packet, and my plan is, unless council wants otherwise, I'll just approve that event administratively, since we've had it for the past several years with no issues.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Any objections to approving that administratively? Okay.
good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker.
Can I ask a question as well?
Certainly.
This proclamation for National Sea Tracks Think Train Week, that was a tongue twister. Will that be an event or just a day? What's the,
So that would just be a proclamation that the railroads will use to show that they have support from the communities.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Got three of us.
Motion by Brandon, support by Kinnaman, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. We have a presentation from our Fire Chief, Jeremy Watson, regarding the appointment of Kurt Nitschke as Fire Marshal.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. I would ask that if I could so kindly switch the firefighter award first and then do Mr. Nitschke second.
Yes.
Some of them have to leave for some practices, and I asked if we could just move them to the phone.
Certainly.
Thank you. Good evening. Today we are here to celebrate an extraordinary moment, one that highlights not only the power of life, but the incredible incredible dedication, skill, and bravery of two individuals who made that moment possible. In the early hours of December 24th, 2023, an 8-week premature baby girl, born 8 weeks early, came into this world in what could have been a situation filled with fear and uncertainty. But thanks to the heroic efforts of paramedic Mike Marr and Captain Chris Preston, that moment became one of hope, courage, and resilience. Paramedic Mike Marr's quick thinking, leadership, and years of experience were crucial in this delicate situation. The precision in which he handled each step from stabilizing the mother to ensuring the baby's first breaths were safe and secure speaks volumes of your expertise and dedication to your professionalism. And Captain Chris Preston's unwavering support, being calm under pressure, and his commitment to being steady-handed during a time of great urgency were nothing short of inspiring. In these critical moments, your role was indispensable in ensuring a safe and smooth delivery, even under difficult circumstances. Delivering a child 8 weeks premature presents unique challenges, and we know that every second counted that day. You both faced challenges head-on with professionalism, compassion, and your heart. Your teamwork ensured that not only did the baby survive, but she is thriving today. A testament to your courage and excellence.
Awesome.
To bring a new life into the world is always a miracle. But to do so in such circumstances, with such grace and skill, truly makes you heroes in the eyes of this community. The grateful parents, and most importantly, the little girl whose future is brighter because of you. On behalf of the Village Fire Department and the family and everyone who lives lives you have touched, we thank you. Your efforts have made a lasting impact, and your dedication to saving lives will never be forgotten. Let us please all give a round of applause for these two exceptional individuals. So I wasn't quite done yet, but. So we do have a historic award for Mr. Captain Preston. And at this time, I'd also like to introduce Miss Isabella Ross, who was born that night, and Mother Lauren Gray. She's got such a beautiful smile.
I know. I've been watching people saying that it's passed through.
Thank you both. I appreciate it. My best here. That's right. Yeah. Marines, that's what they do, right?
Blood stripes.
She's like, more applause, please.
She knows what you're talking about.
Congratulations, brother. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a very special moment. I've been doing this almost 20 years, and I never had the opportunity to have that moment in time. So just to give you a quick synopsis of the evening, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. They did call 911 for imminent birth. They made it from the airport area subdivision to McDonald's and had to pull over at that point. So, I want to thank Ms. Gray and, of course, Ms. Isabella Ross for joining this evening. Mr. Mike Marr contacted me about 3 o'clock this afternoon. His truck broke down on the south side of Detroit, and he wasn't able to make it this evening. So if you are in town Saturday,
Absolutely.
he's working at 24, and he would love to just have an interaction with you. So if you have time on Saturday, please. Thank you so much.
They will come out.
Okay, secondly, on the list, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kurt Nitschke. Mr. Kurt Nitschke's been with Holly Village Fire Department for 5 years. He has over 4 decades of experience in EMS and fire. He is Fire Officer 3, Fire Inspector 2 with Plan Review, Fire Instructor, Paramedic, and so many more certifications to list here. He is more than qualified for this position that we're about to promote him to. He's been married to his wife Deborah for 17 years. Together they have 4 children, 7 grandchildren, and of course their 2 fur babies, which they adore very much. As a family, they enjoy spending time with family, camping, hunting, and fishing. It is with immense pride and pleasure that I announce the promotion of Kurt Nitschke to the esteemed position of Fire Marshal within the Holly Village Fire Department. Kurt's commitment to excellence, leadership, and dedication to protecting our community have earned him this well-deserved recognition. Throughout his tenure, Kurt has consistently demonstrated an outstanding ability to assess risks, manage emergency situations, and lead his team with professionalism and compassion. His vast knowledge of fire prevention, investigation, and code enforcement has been invaluable to the safety of our community, and he's been an exemplary role model to his peers. In his new role as Fire Marshal, Kurt will oversee critical fire safety operations, ensure compliance with safety codes, and lead fire investigations to safeguard the well-being of our citizens. I have every confidence that his leadership will continue to strengthen our department and elevate the standards of safety across the Village of Holly. Please join me in congratulating Kurt Nitschke on this significant achievement, and we look forward to his continued success in his role as the Fire Marshal.
Congrats, Fire Marshal.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Kurt.
Congratulations.
Council, I'd just like to take a moment and thank you for allowing me to do this. It's so important that we recognize the outstanding first responders that we have in our community, because you never know when that time is going to come where you have to call 911, and to be reassured that you're going to have stellar, outstanding individuals that are going to respond to your doorstep ready to mitigate whatever hazard you have. So thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Chief. All right. Public comment. Members of the public may address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for items not on the agenda. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. For items on the agenda, comments may be made after council discussion prior to council vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public will please state their name and address for the record. And for anyone who may not have the agenda before them, our agenda items are the approval of council action request to act as fiduciary for the American Legion $1.3 million grant, the approval of council action request to act as fiduciary for the American Legion $600,000 grant, consideration of a resolution confirming the village president's appointment of James Koskela to the Village of Holly Downtown Development Authority Board, consideration of the approval of resolution authorizing the village manager to execute the placemaking and public spaces program agreement, consideration of the clerk treasurer executive search process, and consideration of the approval of council action requests to renew the Johnson and Wood contract. So this public comment time is for any items that are not those. So is there anyone for public comment? I want to say Ms. Roper.
Ms. Rick.
I wanted to go first, I need to wake up. Kristen Watt, 102 South First Street, apartment 3. Is this my phone? No. I'll just be loud. Okay. So first of all, good evening. In 2020, in the middle of a once-in-a-generation pandemic, over 50 citizens, 20 businesses, and a handful of local organizations such as our Veterans Resource Center, our Township Library, and Historical Society contributed to a year-long effort to collect names and stories about the immense impact that women have left in the cultivation of our Holly community. In August of 2021, after hundreds of man-hours by so many different volunteers in the community, and with the help of our DPW and Village Parks Commission, we completed the rehabilitation of the dilapidated space that was the foundation of the original Waterworks building in Waterworks Park along the Shiawassee River. Many of you attended this event where we revealed the new garden memorial space that hosts the names of at least 80 women who left their legacy on our community through their service, businesses, volunteerism, and forward-thinking strategies to move Holly forward. They delivered babies, fed children, and lived lives of service. We also included female veterans dating back to the one single female who was in the Civil War. Many of these women stood in Crapo Park, where we just hosted Holidays, a community play day, to send Union soldiers off to war for the cause of freedom for all. Their contributions are immeasurable, and we see this level of care and service today through the gifts and talents of hundreds of esteemed women in our community. Women like Tina Alvarado, who chairs the Holly Area Youth Assistance, Linda Smith and Leslie Osmond, who have spent years of their lives in service to preserving our Holly history. I know Ms. Marlowe is here tonight. You would be one of those esteemed women here in Holly who have dedicated your life to Holly. And also Heather Lyon Melton and to many other amazing women who serve our community by ensuring the most vulnerable in our village have the food that they need at the Holly Police Department. Countless volunteers for our festivals and events, the Friends of the Holly Township Library, our paraprofessionals in our schools, educators, and the list goes on. In the late spring, early summer of 2025, we will be updating and adding several upgrades to this memorial space. The process for obtaining additional names for the women that we have since lost since the inception of this project has already begun, and we will be adding names of women such as Barb McKay, Laura Levant, Pam Krantz, and more. Women who dedicated their time, resources, and compassion to so many. In our efforts to begin fundraising along with pending contributions from several businesses, we are honoring another female cultural icon, the sassy and inspiring cultural icon, Ms. Helen Roper, hence why I am dressed this way. So we will be hosting a Roper Romp as a collaboration with this fall's Ladies Night Out on November 1st. Our goal in this effort is to not only have fun and celebrate women, but to support our local economy from one end of the DDA district to the other. We will start these festivities from 5 to 7 in Midtown Holly, with staff also on theme at Battle Valley Brewing Company. We will then migrate downtown to sip, shop, and stroll at Ladies Night, and then end the evening for an after party at Taylor's Tavern, formerly Backwoods Bar and Grill, from 9 to 11. I am just here to let you know of this, and the reason for this is because multiple businesses, including those already mentioned, as well as Alter Designs, Holly Antiques, Creative Fashions, Funky Fungi Tea House, and more, will have donation canisters out during Ladies Night that will go toward the upgrades for the Holly Women's Memorial. We invite you all to find your favorite caftan, grab a red wig, meet some new neighbors, and fellowship with a wonderfully diverse group of women as we Roper Romp through Ladies Night in Holly. And because it is 2024, we don't care if you're a Stan Lee or a Mr. Furley or anyone else you can come to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Ms. Davidson.
It looks like it's honor the fire department today, and my hats off to
story I love to tell. I was going to say something else, but my words don't come easy these days. The story is, I had a foot doctor's appointment and I was early. So I was thinking around the house, but picking up things, but I had 5 at the time. I stepped out of one of my rooms into the hall. At the end of the hall is a window, and I see a face. I step forward a little bit, and lo and behold, it's our fire chief coming through my window. And I said, "What in the hell are you doing?" I said, "Get out here right now." And I stepped out the door. I said, "What did I do?" Because I saw 2 policemen behind him. And he said, "You haven't been out of the house. People are worried about you. Where have you been?" I said, "I'm out every day." And around the corner comes the foot doctor receptionist, crying. She said, "You're late for your appointment." Thank you, Jeremy Watson. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much. Sir?
You can borrow.
Scott Schleich, 6378 Weatherford Court. If you guys don't know, I run the Vintage Baseball here in Holly. And to add to the festivities of thank you to the police and the fire department, we had an incident on Sunday where 2 ball players collided with one another. And one was much taller than the other. And we ended up calling Holly. 1 officer and 2 EMTs, the captain being one of them, showed up, diagnosed the player, tried in vain to convince him to come to, or take a ride to a hospital, which he turned down, but after lots of consultation, he did go and check himself in at McLaren and Clarkson, where they discovered a 3rd-degree laceration of his kidney because of the injuries.
Oh.
And so I'd like to thank Chief Nash and Chief Watson for their officers and for keeping this player alive for us. I did get a notification he is out of the hospital and at home recovering right now. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Very cool.
Anyone else for public comment? Yes.
Sean Love, 200 West Saginaw. I'm concerned about Crenshaw Park. It's looking tacky. You hear the problems with it. You know, these cemetery monuments in there, the benches face the road, not the lake, the way they're placed. The leftover streetlights in the park aren't really appropriate. They want to put them in the park. The trash barrels are rusty, look tacky. The trees block the view of the lake. It's supposed to be a lakeside park. They have all these signs. Take your dog somewhere and don't bring your kayak. Just instead of having maybe a central place with the rules that kind of all over. And then the trees that were added. They got 20 trees. Where do they get planted? Under the power lines along the road. So that blocks any view of the lake as they mature. And it's just not appropriately done. It's just makes it tacky instead of making it a great park, because there's a great view there. The lake But doing all of this other stuff is, well, we did something. And everything that's been done has diminished the appropriateness of the park. It's a good thing they weren't working on their side.
Thank you, Mr. Law. Is there anyone else for public comment? Sir.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, members of the public. My name is Daniel Wendell. My address is 108 Airport Drive. I'm sure a lot of you all know me. I just flew up here. I'm kind of aggravated right now, kind of hot under the collar. Head's probably ready to blow off. I don't know. But this microphone, take it outside, throw it out. You can't hear nothing. I've been sitting at home, texting anybody I can text, saying, I can't hear a word that's coming through anybody. I've checked my TV, I've tried my phone, I've checked everything. So I decided to drive up here and tell you guys, no one can hear nothing who's not watching this on YouTube, except for what's coming out of all your microphones. So I don't know if this is not turned on, not calibrated right, but like when Jeremy did his whole, or whatever he did, awards he gave out, it was like this whole thing. I mean, and that's kind of, you know, it's important. He's giving out important awards to some of the firefighters and everybody else he's giving them to, and whatever else is going on. That's something the public kind of needs to hear. And when I log onto the YouTube page on my phone, I can see people saying, we can't hear nothing, we can't hear nothing, we can't hear nothing, we can't hear nothing. And I decided, you know, I do have a hot temper. That's why I don't come to the meetings, because otherwise I'd probably get Mr. Nash over there over, you know, I already know, silver bracelets and all. So, but I decided I had to come here and at least get this, so we try to get this fixed. So.
Thank you very much.
That's all I've got to say, and good luck to everything else.
Thank you very much for letting us know, Mr. Wendell. Do we have a fix for the microphone?
No, not at this time. We'll have to check and see what the problem is. After the meeting, I checked it. It is turned on for whatever reason.
They're just not connecting to the YouTube feed then?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment before we proceed? All right. There is no old business. Item number 1, under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to act as fiduciary for the American Legion $1.3 million grant. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Council. So this is a request from the American Legion. It was tendered to us by Mr. Joe Mishler, who was going to join us tonight to outline the request, but I think I can do that for Council. So the American Legion has the opportunity, or had the opportunity, to apply for a $1.3 million grant. It's a federal grant. The use of the grant is contained in the documentation that Mr. Mishler supplied, and as you can see, there are about 2 or 2.5 pages of different uses for the money. The stipulation of the grant, because it is a federal grant for auditing purposes, they require that a municipality be the fiduciary or the record keeper of the proceeds of the grant and then the expenses of the grant. Now, as compensation for that, as part of the grant, it does allow for the village to bill back to the grant administrative costs. So either Ms. Bigger's costs, or if there are other staff costs, if it requires auditing costs by the village's auditors, Plant Moran, that is also reimbursable. So based on that fact, I mean, certainly it is extra work for staff. However, I think the purpose and the end result of benefit to the community is worthwhile. And so based upon that, staff would recommend Council's authorization for the Village of Holly to act as fiduciary for this $1.3 million grant for the American Legion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. What is the pleasure of council?
I have a question.
I have due to
Where will the funds be held?
So the funds do not come to the village, they go directly to the American Legion, that's my understanding. They report all expenditures back through the village.
Okay, good.
Is there any liability to the village?
No, I don't believe that there is, because we're just a record-keeping agency for this. So we actually are not spending the funds ourselves. The American Legion is spending the funds.
So they're handling allocation and approval. You said potentially we might be auditing or tracking?
Correct.
Okay. And would you imagine, and maybe this is for Ms. Bigger, that would be a lot of work for staff? Or minimal?
It would be some, but they would reimburse us for it, so.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the council action request to act as fiduciary for the American Legion $1.3 million grant.
Second.
A motion by Brandon, and I think Kim got it again with the support. Is there any further council discussion desired on this item? All right. Is there any public comment desired on this item? Ms. Mattson?
So, yeah, I did, I'm just going to say, if council would like, we can just do participation over here.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll just use this, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Anna Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I talked to Tina at the Legion yesterday, actually. I just didn't hear you say it, so I just want to give some context of why they need the funds. They said that their foundation is starting to cave in and they're having roof problems. In terms of this grant and just for the public to know, I really feel like the Legion is like our community center. It's the closest thing we have to a community center. They do such wonderful things for the community. They do a lot of free events too. So I highly suggest we do this as long as there's no legal problems or anything. But I think this is a great thing for our community to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mattson. Mr. Koskela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Jim Koskela, 207 North Saginaw. I am the second vice commander of our Holly American Legion. I wasn't planning on speaking onto this item, but here I am. So I've been asked to give a little bit of information. Our Legion somehow impacts 15,000 people a year. That's just in Holly. That's veterans, civilians, everyone. We are asking for $1.3 million, and as Ms. Mattson mentioned, there's lots of work that needs to be done, so help us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Right. Seeing none, hearing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Definitely.
Brandon.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 2 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to act as fiduciary for the American Legion $600,000 grant. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. So this request is, again, from Mr. Mishler. It actually is on behalf of the Holly Area Veterans Resource Center. This $600,000 grant would allow for them to expand and continue operations. Currently, the Veterans Resource Center assists 1,500 to 2,000 veterans per year in obtaining benefits and just helping them deal with other issues that are involved with being a veteran and with that assistance. Again, this grant is through Senator Gary Peters' office. It's a federal grant. It, just the same as the prior request, requires fiduciary responsibility of a municipality. And it again has the same reimbursement for hard costs occurred.
Very good, thank you. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion that we approve as presented.
Support.
I'll let that side of the room.
Motion by Perkins, support by Musgrave, to approve council action request. Is there any council discussion desired on this item? Is there any public comment desired on this item? Seeing none, hearing none, Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 3 under new business is consideration of the approval of Resolution 2024-34, confirming the village president's appointment of James Koskela to the Village of Holly Downtown Development Authority Board. Couple of comments about this agenda item before we proceed with any action on it. We do have currently 2 openings on the DDA board, one for a business owner in the DDA and another for a resident. This appointment would be for the resident position. Now, a couple things within the past 24 hours or so have come to my attention. One of those is that there was some discussion at the DDA board meeting last night about potentially putting a policy in place and perhaps even amending the DDA bylaws to this end so that the DDA board or a committee of the board could interview, vet, and then make a recommendation for appointments to the board to the village president. As I'm sure all of us know, it's the prerogative of the village president to make appointments to all boards and commissions in the village, and that includes the DDA board. That's one thing to keep in mind. Another one is we had one application that I completely missed, and that's my fault, that not all applicants were considered. There were 5 of them, and then another application which came in quite late. As a matter of fact, it came in after our agenda for this evening's meeting had been set. So with all of those considerations in mind, I would like to move to postpone this item indefinitely so that the DDA board can put a vetting and recommending policy in place, and we could reap the full advantage of that, and that all applicants would have the benefit of that consideration. And just so everyone's absolutely clear, a motion to postpone indefinitely means that we are given time to act. A motion to table means we'll come back to that item later in the current meeting, this meeting. A simple motion to postpone means that we'll consider this item again no later than the next regularly scheduled meeting. Postponing indefinitely means that we will consider this item again, just not tonight. I will say that I have all the confidence in the world in Mr. Koskela. We heard from Mr. Koskela this evening. Mr. Koskela currently serves on our planning commission, and I have found him to be a very positive, very professional, very intelligent person who's very easy to work with, and I think he'd be a great fit for the DDA board. But I want to make sure that we are fair to all applicants and we let the DDA board's policy play out.
So is that a motion?
That is a motion. That's a very long-winded motion.
Before we do that.
Yes.
I have a question about the motion.
A couple questions, yes.
Is this instituting that we're going through the DDA?
No. This is a motion to postpone, is simply a motion to take no action tonight and not to commit ourselves as to when we will take action.
Due to the passing of Ms. Clark, is there a 45-day timeline of when that position has to be filled, as other vacancies are? Or does that not apply to the DDA?
I am not aware of any such a time constraint, and I see Mr. Gildner shaking his head. Mr. Gildner?
Not aware of any,
Okay,
Just one.
thank you. Yeah, great
I
question.
have a quick question. Is there a precedent for this? I don't think that this is being done on other boards.
There is not a precedent for this in the village. One of the things at our DDA board meeting last night that Mr. Rosca brought to our attention was that the process that he was used to when he served on the Ferndale DDA board. Some of us may know Mr. Rosca served on the City of Ferndale DDA board for many years. And how it worked for them was that a committee of the DDA would recruit, interview, vet candidates based upon the needs of their local DDA, and then make a recommendation to, in their case, the mayor of Ferndale. But of course, there, in Ferndale's charter, as in our charter, it remained, at the end of the day, the prerogative of the village president to put up whoever he or she chooses for appointment, with the approval of council, of course.
Can we ask for the input of relevant legal counsel of any potential fallout one way or the other?
So there could be no changes at all or impact on the ultimate authority. The ultimate authority is with the village president with the approval of council. So the DDA could not deviate from that, could not change that. It's possible to have the DDA do its vetting process and make their recommendation to the village president, who may simply say, well, thank you very much, but I'm going to proceed elsewhere. So in that sense, I don't see any lasting impact or any change to the ultimate authority. It's feedback, input, is the way that I would see it.
And in regards to postponing this motion, could there be any legal ramifications for us that Mr. Cascella is no longer being considered tonight?
No.
Okay, thanks.
No, he has, at this point, he has no vested interest in this position. His name has been put forward, but I've sat through a number of meetings where people have been, recommended and council hasn't approved, and there's no liability there whatsoever. So I don't see any difference.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I can just make one comment, I was at that DDA meeting last night also, and I would just say this, is I think that it's very important that if council decides to go down this road, that you relay to the DDA board that it's a recommendation only, and you're not going to create a divisive situation if you don't select their chosen candidate. That's a little bit of my concern with this situation. I think you want to be really careful with that, because it is very clear in the village charter that it is a village president recommendation, village council approval. So I would just say, if you're going to go down this road, somebody needs to just make it really clear to the DDA board of what the scope is of their recommendation.
I think that's an excellent point, Mr. Walker, and thank you for making that. And I can say that as the council liaison to the DDA board, I can certainly share that with them in the appropriate forum. There is a motion on the table. I think we were about to have a support from Kinnaman. Is there any further council discussion desired on this item before we proceed?
I just know that in the past, we've left people out that have applied. I think we need to go over like dates, accepting application dates very thoroughly.
Yeah, thank you. And my hope is that 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 this process from the DDA or committee of the DDA, however they ultimately choose to do that, will help mitigate that a little bit, because you're absolutely right. You know, we get a late submission, as we did in this case, after the agenda was already set, and it just throws a monkey wrench into the works, right?
Yeah.
I have a comment. With the fact that we have pretty much a large amount of turnover in the DDA, usually, since this is already on the agenda and has already been presented, can we not go ahead with this appointment if council deems it's okay? And then go forward with that, because what you're doing is absolutely pushing the timeline out, and you're not gonna fill that seat until you come up with a committee or whatever to interview these people.
Right. I certainly understand the concern there. Obviously, we want to have a full board with members who are not only seated, but who participate, you know, who show up and participate consistently in meetings every month, or as close to every month as possible. I hear you there. I also, you know, I suppose I would say we have a motion and support on the table to postpone, and if the rest of the council, you know, thinks as you do, then that motion will fail, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further council discussion desired?
I would say, I think it's a wise step to at least postpone this, even if it's to the next meeting, where we have a time to step back from it a little bit and look at it, and allow the DDA the opportunity to at least have some discussion too. You know, I think that's good sometimes, to take the time.
Thank you very much. Anything else from council? Is there any public comment desired on this item? Sir, Mr. Koskela.
Jim Koskela, 207 North Saginaw. First, I want to thank President Delaney here for putting me up for the appointment, and also giving me the heads up that new information potentially came in. I think it just goes to demonstrate that we're super transparent here in the village, and that goes with our staff too. It's how many emails did we see about filling this position? So I think the item that Mr. Harrington brought up of having a deadline is a really good idea. Now, with all that said, I'm definitely the best candidate. I can just say that right off the bat. I was a little surprised to hear some of the members at the DDA board didn't know who I was, and it was a little troubling that they didn't know who I was. And not throw shade or anything, but it was weird. I think for those that don't know me, I am a stay-at-home dad some of the time. I also help manage e-commerce businesses where I manage multiple $1,000s a month in advertising, and I think I can bring that type of know-how and experience to the DDA and help our community improve. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
No.
Musgrave.
No.
Brandon.
Man, I could go either way on this. I think the thing holding me back is the seat not being filled potentially for a while. I'm only saying this out loud to be transparent. I remember a time when a seat on DDA went empty for about 3 months, and I was kind of disappointed. As we were waiting for a recommendation from them, it was a rather informal process at the time. So no.
Harrington,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Delaney.
Check me.
I hate you all.
We didn't hear that?
Wait a minute. It was my motion. Yes, motion carries. Consideration of the approval of Resolution 2024-35, authorizing the village manager to execute the placemaking and public spaces program agreement. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Council. So this is a grant through Oakland County. It is through the use of ARPA funds. The dollar amount that's specified in the grant is $356,755.32. It is designated to be used for relocation of the historic Union Railroad Depot as part of a placemaking initiative within the village of Holly. This is something that DDA Director Klump worked closely with Oakland County in securing. The funds have already been designated for the village. The only thing that is required is approval of Resolution 2024-035, authorizing acceptance of the grant and authorizing the village manager to execute any relevant documents.
Thank you very much. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion.
That we approve Resolution 2024-35, authorizing the village manager to execute the placemaking and public spaces program agreement.
Second.
Motion by Musgrave, support by Kinnaman, to approve Resolution 2024-35. Is there any council discussion desired on this item?
I just think it's fabulous, you know. I know that this has been a project that's been in the works for a long time, and I'm glad to see actually some good movement on it.
I'm excited to see it once it's finished.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's gonna be so cool.
Absolutely. Any further discussion desired? Right. Is there any public discussion desired on this item? Yes, Mr. Mishler.
Do you want to use my microphone, Joe?
This doesn't work.
It
No.
doesn't work yet.
It's very impressive. I think this is a wonderful thing. And as chairman of the Depot Committee, I urge all of you to vote for this, because eventually the building will be moved, eventually. I used to make predictions, but I'm not going to make any predictions, because I've been wrong so many times. So, but I urge you to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mishler. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Seeing none, hearing none. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 5, under new business, consideration of the clerk treasurer executive search process. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. So this really is an item that I'm going to throw right back to council, because you have some decisions to make, at least as far as process and timing. So you've already started the process with a replacement for the village manager, as my contract edges toward expiration in December of 2024. The fact is, the clerk treasurer contract also expires in December of 2024. So I think council needs to be thinking about process and what you're going to do as far as how you're going to replace the clerk treasurer, and what that timetable is. So the Personnel Committee has already met and talked about this a little bit, but there have been no concrete decisions. So I put this on the agenda tonight based upon feedback from council, just so that you'd have that opportunity to put something on the record as far as where you're heading, and if there's any steps that administration can take in order to assist you in that direction.
What is the pleasure of council?
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Another one. What steps could administration take to help solicit someone to replace Ms. Bigger?
Well, I think if council desires, we would have no problem with putting together some sample advertisements, and we would take those from prior processes here in the village, as well as current municipalities that have applications or accepting applications for this position. And I think also we could, once council decides what your timeline is, we could help establish the guidelines for when the advertising would begin, when it would cease, when the application period would begin, when that would cease. What council needs to decide is, again, that timetable and what you're going to do as far as interviewing. If you're going to have the Personnel Committee conducted interviewing, bring a candidate to council, or if council as a whole is going to interview candidates. I mean, I would think maybe depending upon the amount of applications and resumes received, the Personnel Committee might narrow the field down a bit, so council as a whole is not interviewing 20 candidates, but maybe 3 to 5 candidates, or whatever number you chose. But administration, we'd be more than happy to put together some sample advertisements, and then you can modify those however you'd wish. But I think one, not to put Ms. Bigger on the spot, but I think one relevant question that council has to ask is, what is a hard timetable for her? Her contract expires in December. I mean, if council wishes to just allow that expiration to occur, then you're going to have to hire an interim clerk treasurer, which is very costly. By the same token, you run into that same issue with the village manager. There's no way that you will have a candidate hired, well, I should say no way. It would not be likely that you would have a candidate hired by the end of December. And so you're going to need to be thinking about what you're going to do interim-wise there. Now also, and I think a lot of it boils down to leadership and expenditures. So your executive search process you're using for the manager is about $18,500 if there are no additional costs to that. If you hire interim manager, interim clerks, you're probably looking in the neighborhood of $60 to $100 per hour, no benefits, but you're going to have those costs. I mean, we have recommendations, you know, if council is interested in those, but, you know, it's your process.
I'm very interested in hearing it. You know, and do we have anybody in-house that is capable of moving in with Ms. Bigger, moving forward?
So I would let Ms. Bigger speak to that. My estimation would be no, there's nobody that could step up.
Well, nobody's going to fill her shoes. I'm not saying that. I'm saying.
Experience, though.
But, you know, do you have somebody?
I don't believe I have anyone interested in stepping up.
There we go. Okay.
I have a question. For the Personnel Committee, did anybody, I mean, it's obvious we're at the 11th hour here. And we're, as Mr. Walker said, we are unlikely to have somebody in place by December. I mean, it's going to be a push. And I know a little bit about Debbie's job. And if she's not there, there's going to be issues. It's going to affect this entire village. Have you at least asked Mr. Walker or Ms. Bigger if they were interested in staying as an interim or a consultant for 2 or 3 months until you have the opportunity to get a qualified candidate in there?
It it was discussed, for sure.
Pardon me?
It was discussed,
Okay.
absolutely. It's been
So
discussed a
why-
couple times.
What was the reason that you didn't want an interim in there? Or to ask them to continue to stay on?
The biggest thing with us was we had a question when we were hiring for the village manager, and then potentially for her as well. Were we gonna get double dipped? Are we gonna be charged $18,500 for her and $18,500 for him?
Well, you're talking to MML search, she's asking
I'm asking for the interim, if you're considering hiring
them.
outside, you're gonna be paying more to hire an interim outside than you would be to
Extending
tag on,
them.
extending them for 2 or 3 months.
When we
What they're saying.
discussed it, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were told by Mr. Walker that Miss Bigger would potentially stay on longer, potentially into next year, so that we wouldn't need an
Asked
interim.
her that?
Well, except I would only say this, I don't mean to interrupt. I would say that Ms. Bigger wasn't part of that discussion.
Correct.
And really, I mean, that question needs to be asked of her. I mean, it's not up to me to offer.
I saw her eyes get bigger than
Yeah,
glasses.
To offer
I'm like, what did you
employment for her.
Well,
So, I mean, I would say.
I mean, we spoke for her then, right?
And I would also say, you know, if nothing else, in the interest of not giving Mr. Gildner a heart attack, you know, as I recall, gosh, how do I want to put this? I'll put it this way. Contract negotiations are normally handled in closed session. Put it that way. Fair?
Well, they.
Not that this is, but I'm saying those are very good questions that you ask, and I don't know if we could say any more other than those are very good questions.
Well, the Open Meetings Act talks about employee evaluations, disciplinary action, things of that sort. That's where the Open Meetings Act speaks to. And what you're talking about tonight is not those things. You're not talking about disciplinary action or performance reviews. So I see no problem with an open discussion about interim, what direction you take, what may be the terms. What has happened in the past, historically with the village, is once the council hones in on a particular candidate or another, they may say something like, you know, these are the terms that we're interested in, but, you know, we're going to, you know, turn it over to the attorney to negotiate with that person and then come back with a proposal. So hopefully that answers it in a little roundabout way, but I don't see a problem with an open discussion otherwise.
So in that case, perhaps it would be best to simply cut to the chase, you know, to get at what you're wondering, to say, Mr. Walker, Ms. Bigger, you know, is extending your contract, if that's the right word, in order to serve as an interim while your replacements are being found. If the council were to go in that direction, is that something that you two would be open to?
That's the question.
Ladies first.
And you can be honest.
I would consider it, depending on personal issues, I would consider it.
Okay.
To
Good
stay
to
on
know.
until you could hire someone.
Good to know.
Not forever.
Providing a timeline, like 3 months? 6
3 months,
That'd be great.
the first quarter of the year, if it takes that long, depending on personal circumstances, of course.
Is it appropriate to ask for a month at a time in case we came across someone who wanted to get started sooner than 3 months?
Possibly, I guess it would depend on my deadline to turn in my retirement.
Okay.
Because it would alter that.
Gotcha.
MERS requires certain timeline.
So MERS requires, just so you know, a 45 to 90 day period. So you're looking at almost 3 months notification.
So if we did that, it would kind of give us a specific start date for a candidate.
Yeah.
And can administration begin soliciting clerk treasurers, qualified clerk treasurers now? And can the personnel committee set up a meeting to start pounding out the qualifications that we're looking for? And during that point, somewhere in there, we will be meeting with MML to have our first meeting about the village manager position, and that should give us some spitballing ideas about how to go about the process.
Do we not have a job description already for the clerk treasurer's position?
We do.
Perfect.
So we have a job description. I think what you're saying, and what I think would be a workable scenario as far as the clerk treasurer position, if council would like, we will put together some sample advertisements, provide them to the council at the October meeting, and you can tell us whether you think those are suitable or not. We can also work with the MML while we have not contracted with them to assist with that position. The recruiter that is assisting with the executive search for the manager has offered to give some consultation, and so we'll have a little guidance from him also. He's meeting with staff tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, so I can talk with him a little more about that. But we can give you something in October. That'll give you time to think about what your timetable is, what you want to do, and then personnel can talk about what they want to do with Ms. Bigger, or Ms. Bigger's position. As far as my position, I'm not quite as flexible as Ms. Bigger. My December 31st is a pretty hard date. I mean, I could go a couple of weeks, you know, if I needed that for carryover. Truthfully, and I know I've mentioned this before, and it seems like I always say not to put anybody on the spot, but I'm putting people on the spot, is you have a utilities director who has been part of the financial team for the village for the last 14 years. I mean, it would seem to me that if council wanted to, you would not be putting the village in any jeopardy if we're going to go past that couple of weeks past January, if the utilities director, Brian Clausen, were appointed as the interim director, and then while you continue your search. I mean, the real advantage to that is, like I said, if you hire an interim manager from outside, you're looking at, my guesstimate, $80 to $100 per hour, because that's what those professional costs are. Mr. Clausen has a lot of knowledge, but I don't think you're talking about an additional $80 an hour in order to have him do that. And I think that the operations of the village continue seamlessly during your search period. Whether he decides to apply for the full-time manager's position or not, that really has nothing to do with the interim period. But I mean, that would be my recommendation. We're already in this executive search. Let's continue this with the MML. But I do think you need to be thinking about, if there is not a hire done by the end of December, what do you do after that? Like I said, if you select somebody, they accept the job, they pass the background, and they say, I can't start till the 15th of January, no issue. I don't have any problem with covering that. If you don't select somebody and it looks like you're getting into February, March, April, that is not a possibility for me. And I think I think you have an in-house option that, if it were me, I would look really seriously at that option. But I mean, we don't need a motion on any of this tonight. I think by consensus, I can go ahead and take it that you want us to start preparing or collecting sample job advertisements for the clerk treasurer. We'll present them at the October meeting. You can then decide, yes, this is what we want, or modify it in this way. We'll get some input from the MML recruiter, and then from there, you can determine when you want to start advertising for that position. But just remember, you're talking 90 to 120 days for any of those positions.
And then we've talked several times about these potential short-term contracts. What would the process for that look like if council approved it? Would we have legal counsel write up these short-term temporary contracts for Ms. Bigger or Jerry or Mr. Clausen?
Well, yeah, you would have to have an addendum to our current contract. So our current contracts state that unless terminated, at least 30 days prior to the end of our contract, they automatically renew for 1 year. So we're not interested in 1 year in either situation. So what you would have then is Mr. Gildner or the labor attorney, but Mr. Gildner, more than capable. Right? Yeah, of just preparing a short addendum to the contract that says this current contract is extended for X amount of days. And that's all it would require.
What if the contract expired? Could we not do a consulting basis or a consulting contract? Or does that not make sense?
Well, I mean, I suppose anything's possible. I mean, could you hire as a, are you talking about me?
Well, you were
Deb?
done.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose you could hire us. That would take some discussion as far as expectation hours and things like that.
Okay, so it wouldn't be business as usual.
No, I really think the village would be best served to reach an agreement with Ms. Bigger as far as long as she is willing and able to continue on, but you need to get about the process because you're talking
Like
90,
right away.
20, 160 days, depending on how long it drags out. And then with the manager's position, you're already in process with that, but we know because of the timetable, it's very unlikely you're going to have a candidate in seat by the end of December. So you at least need to address that interim period, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months.
Look how long it took us to find a DDA director.
Oh, DDA is in the exact same situation. So Mr. Klemp's last day is Friday of this week. As of this time, there is no advertisement in the newspaper. So they're in a 90 to 120 day situation also.
Well, it's totally ludicrous.
Alrighty,
So again,
take any action.
no action necessary. If you have any other questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll just proceed. We'll provide information for you at the
Oh,
next meeting.
hold on a minute here. No action necessary, but we didn't even begin this process. We didn't even have it on the agenda the first time until June, and I've been asking to have it on the agenda for months before then so that this exact thing didn't happen. So no motion necessary, but what is the next step and can we take it so that we don't end up underneath the boat without a paddle?
Well, I think the next step to be taken is for you to approve an advertisement and then get it in the MML and get it on the website so that you can start collecting resumes. But I think the decision you have to make, and I think it was the consensus of the Personnel Committee that you didn't want to hire a clerk treasurer until after a manager was hired, so the manager could participate in that hiring process because of that close working relationship. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but it just may not be feasible because the reality of it is, I mean, you may not get a manager your first go around. So, I mean, when I was hired, I had another job. They made a job offer to another candidate. I did not apply at that time. That candidate did not work out. They had to start the process over again. And that's when I threw my hat in the ring and then ultimately got hired 14 years ago. But, I mean, so that's the situation. So, I mean, I think it's a great point. I do think you need to get some direction going. I think you need to accept applications, and I think you need to be ready to pivot in that if your manager selection doesn't pan out right away, you may end up hiring a clerk treasurer first. But you can't do that unless you have resumes in hand.
Okay. But I think we need to discuss whether or not we're bringing in an interim before all of this, because if Deb is offered to stay on, you unfortunately can't. December 31st, we have no manager. So we need an interim.
I think at some point, and not in December, you need to make that decision prior to December. But I think at some point you need to say, in the case that we do not have a manager hired, this is going to be our course of action, so that the community knows that there is a well-thought-out plan.
Okay, so would that require a personnel committee to make that in the case that, fill in the blank?
It's not required the personnel committee does it. Personnel committee
Okay.
could do that and make the recommendation, or the entire council could come to the decision.
in the interests of giving ourselves as much time as is currently possible, would it potentially be a good idea to ask staff to prepare an advertisement for the clerk treasurer position, shall we say, in the next week? I believe we already established that we already have a job description, and then schedule a special meeting of the council in order to approve that,
Yeah.
just to give us more time.
My question, leading in that same direction, is could we just authorize the Personnel Committee to approve, a newspaper ad or, what's going to go out? I don't necessarily think we have to meet to look at
A piece of paper and
a
say
piece
yes.
of paper that's
Yeah.
an ad, that we could make that recommendation for, or authorize personnel to make, go ahead and approve what they come up with as, as something that gets put out there. It's pretty, I don't think we have to have a special meeting or even wait a whole month.
No.
Right.
If we can say Personnel Committee can look at a ad and approve that.
Why can't we just have them send it to all of us to look at, and the Personnel Committee makes the decision?
OMA?
Yeah, you have OMA issues there, really. I mean, if you're going to consider a document, then you need to do it in a public meeting.
Okay.
So,
I think I like the Personnel Committee being pre-approved by council right now.
Right, and perhaps in that same meeting, we can also discuss what we would like the procedure to look like as far as that
Yeah, since we're meeting
executive
anyways.
search goes.
That
Yeah.
you would bring back to us then in October.
Yeah,
for
that piece would
part.
come back.
For that
right?
part of it,
Yeah.
sure.
Would it also not be prudent to also make a motion tonight to have Mr. Gildner sit down with Ms. Bigger to knock out that extra 90 to 100-day extension?
The short-term contract?
Right,
Yeah.
so that we've got that knocked out.
No objection here.
We need to get advertising really
It's gotta
pronto.
happen ASAP, because we are going to be in trouble. I'm telling you, I've been through this.
I'll make a motion then.
Yeah.
That we authorize the Personnel Committee to review a ad or publication for the clerk treasurer position and make approval.
Support.
does that include then authorizing staff to post the position? One.
And post the position once it's approved by
Personnel?
personnel.
Okay.
And a further question regarding the motion, and does that, do you want to include in that same motion for the Personnel Committee to make a recommendation regarding the executive search process? Like we were just talking about?
Two separate things.
The interim process, you mean? Actually, it's the interim process we're looking at,
Yeah.
that we are needing.
Okay, so that's,
Bring
Still
bring
has
that
to
back to
come
council.
though, for final vote.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
got to come back to council.
right, yes.
So
yes.
let's leave the
Keep it simple.
advertising separate. and
Okay.
if we want to look at something else.
Okay, so you have,
Yeah.
okay, so I have a motion by Kinnaman and support by Musgrave to authorize the Personnel Committee to review and approve an ad for the clerk treasurer position, and then for staff to post that ad after approval by the Personnel Committee. Is there any further council discussion desired on that item?
Nope.
Is there any public comment desired on that item? Ms. Mattson.
Anna Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. According to our charter, committees will have the power to make recommendations to the village council at either regular or special meetings of the council. Committees can only make recommendations. If they start to make decisions, then they have to follow the Open Meetings Act, which then they have to give public comment and all that. And I would really like our legal counsel that we pay for to voice his opinion about his legal opinion about this. This is very dangerous territory, this very simple decision you're making here. So this council should be approving this. I see nothing wrong with you guys having a special meeting. You guys can do it as early as this week. At the end of this week, it just takes a day to put together a job description and a little advertisement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gilner, do you care to advise on that?
Sure. It certainly is a bit unusual, I'll say that, because your personnel committee, like a lot of those committees, is a advisory body only. However, I don't see a problem with the council giving that authority at this time. I agree that if the personnel committee is going to have that power, then it should act according to the OMA and follow all of those rules. And I temper all of that, or my opinion is tempered by the fact that you're not giving the personnel committee the ability to hire a manager or a clerk. We're talking about coming up with a job description and an advertisement.
Correct.
And so, you know, at the end of the day, I suppose folks could quarrel with that, but you know, it's like talking about, do you have, you know, gray paint on the wall or white paint on the wall? It is, I think, you know, largely a ministerial duty. So I don't see a problem under those circumstances, provided the Personnel Committee acts according to OMA.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any further public comment desired on this item? Mr. Mattson.
Amber, thank you for your mic. Brian Mattson, 15091 Western Valley. I would just recommend that the contracts for the new folks that we hire be staggered so that we don't run into this again where we come years down the line that they're both ending at the same year at the same time. I don't know how long they are standard, but let's say they're 4 years each, that every 2 years so there's someone that's established in one of the roles if we have to replace the next one. I do think a special meeting would be appropriate. We could ask staff to work with Ms. Bigger about getting something hammered out this week and doing a special meeting next week to give her the time she's going to need. We're relying on the good graces of our current staff in this situation. It's kind of alarming, but we have folks that have served for a long time, are getting ready to retire, and we're asking them to stay longer, that if she or Mr. Walker have to plan, we have that special meeting to go over some of those terms after they've been worked out and get it approved so that they can plan whatever they need to do for their retirement funds and everything. I think that's imperative. And thank you both for even entertaining the idea. We could be in a really bad position if not. And then just going forward, I think we're going to have to look at, you know, if the contracts end on December 31st, like we know February, March of that year, we need to begin this process because it's alarming that here we are with 4 months left and we're now, I know we had a discussion last meeting about Mr. Walker, but at any time it could have been added to the agenda previously if there was concerns about this, that we don't do this again in the future where we put ourselves in a bad position where we could have two very crucial roles that take care of our entire village gone if they don't have the good graces and we're without that leadership. So yeah, just better planning for the future. That's all. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item? Right. Hearing none, seeing none, once again, we have a motion and support on the table to authorize the Personnel Committee to approve an advertisement for the position of Clerk Treasurer, and then for staff to post that advertisement once approved. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
No.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 6 under new business, consideration of the approval of council action request to renew the Johnson and Wood contract. Mr. Clausen.
Good evening, thank you, council. In the council action request, Johnson & Wood was formerly ATI, which has done our service at the wastewater plant on our boiler units. And the boiler units are a little bit different because they use the methane gas produced at the plant to run during the wintertime. And then the MAUs are the makeup air units, which pushes that through the plant. And when ATI got bought out or absorbed by Johnson & Wood, our contract just sort of went with it, and somebody finally caught it that said, hey, we haven't renewed this or reviewed this contract in about 8 years. We need to look at it. So they've offered to renew us a 3-year contract, and Johnson & Wood offers rebates for long-term customers, and because they're familiar with our units, of $800 in our first and third year. So if you look at the length of the contract, it would be an $800 contract increase for the next 3 years, but we would get $1,600 back. So since 2017, that'd be roughly an $87 a year increase. I think with the way costs have been rising, that's very reasonable, and they're familiar with all of our equipment, and the techs are out there on a regular basis. So staff would ask that we renew their contract for another 3 years.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Clausen. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Musgrave, support by Perkins to approve council action request to renew the Johnson and Wood contract. Discussion.
Just a point of clarification. This is sort of like a service agreement where they just come and evaluate, but let's say that they have to actually repair something, that's not covered in the cost of this, correct?
They do twice a year, and the boilers have to be certified through the state. So they come in and do that certification for the state.
Right.
That's covered under this contract. Any repairs, they give us a quote before they do the repairs, and we have an opportunity to shop that out if we want to.
Anything else from council?
Is there a monetary number that it's going to cost each resident to absorb the increase?
Well, it would be put under contractual in the budget, so that $800, there's a little bit of wiggle room in the contractual budget, so that's where that would be absorbed at.
And this was budgeted for without the increase, correct?
Correct, yes. So this year, there would be no change because they were going to get that rebate. So there'd be no change. It would be in year 2, so next budget year, we'd have to add the extra $800 in.
Anything else from council? Is there any public comment desired on this item? We have a motion and support to approve the council action request. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Reports. Mr. Walker, anything to add to your written report?
Yes, just one thing. So I will be out of town from September the 21st through the 30th. I will be available and in contact with staff with technology as it is. I did not make a request for an intermanager because it's just for 1 week, and I will be available, so I just wanted to let council know that. In the event that there was a need for an acting manager or somebody of authority in the village while I was gone, both Director Clausen and Clerk Treasurer Bigger are in town during that time period. So more just a heads up than anything.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gilder, anything for us?
Nothing tonight, no.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bigger, anything to add to your written report?
Nothing to add to my written report this evening.
Boards and commission updates and council comments. Ms. Kyer.
Yes, for parks, we currently have an opening. We just had a resignation of one of our commissioners. So again, if anybody is interested in serving on our Parks Board, if you could turn in open application for volunteering, we'd appreciate that. We had Holly Days this week. Apparently, I was not there unfortunately, but apparently everything went well. I do want to bring up to this council things to consider with Miss Bigger and Mr. Walker leaving in terms of events such as Holly Days, Halloween, 4th of July. Generally, our staff is very heavily involved in these things, so I think it's important when we do our searches to keep that as an open consideration. A lot of these events also used to be run by the council, and now they've got kicked back to the parks or the DDA, which they've done a fine job of doing. But I think it's something that we need to consider, because if we have a staff that's not as service-minded as the ones that we have now, that's going to be an undertaking that we as a council may have to undertake.
Thank you very much.
We could add a provision of the job description.
Right, it's always an option, but who knows?
Mr. Kinnaman.
Planning Commission did not meet this past month. Falling into your questions about search kinds of things, were we going to have a meeting with that MML representative?
September the 21st, it's a Saturday at 9 a.m. in the morning in this room. Should be about 2 hours in duration. As I previously stated, he meets tomorrow morning with the department heads, absent of me, to see what they look for in a leader, and then they'll talk with you also.
Because that's where all those discussions happen.
Right, amen.
September the 21st, 9 a.m.
Thank you. Couple of Chamber of Commerce things. We have a Meet the Candidates event scheduled for October 2nd in the evening, 6 p.m. at the Holly High School Auditorium. And the Dixie Byway Car Show will be on Saturday, October 12th. It takes place at Mount Holly. Thank you.
Thank you. President Pro Tem Brandon.
The American Legion is having an Adopt-A-Pet event with Adopt-A-Pet of Fenton co-hosting September 29th, which is Gold Star Mother's Day. And this is in honor of our fallen heroes, one being my son and his fallen comrades from the USS McCain. The Holly Township Library is asking for an increase of 0.31 mils on the November ballot, and I invite you to check out the Holly Library website and educate yourself on their request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perkins.
HTC did not meet, and happy fall, everybody.
Ms. Musgrave.
Nothing to report. My committees have not met, and shame on you, Jim. We want summer.
Yeah, Mr. Harrington.
Yeah, the HIA meeting I attended was almost a month ago. I have stuff on my docket here for the holidays, but I do have good news. They're returning the Texas Roadhouse gift certificate, where you get a free appetizer. And those are really great Christmas gifts if you'd like to help out HIA raise funds.
Thank you very much, sir. And I believe I shared everything that I had to share regarding last night's DDA board meeting, and I would just remind the general public that we have 2 positions available on the DDA board, one for a business owner and one for a resident. At this time, we will consider entering into closed session to discuss collective bargaining agreement negotiations for the firefighters. I see a hand in the audience.
About a 10-minute break before.
Yes, and certainly a 10-minute break before we enter into closed session.
I'll make that motion to enter into closed session to discuss collective bargaining agreement.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and support to enter into closed session. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes, motion carries. We'll take a 10-minute break before we enter in.
Let's help.
I don't
God,
think
I
it
was
was,
going to say, wish everyone Patriots Day tomorrow,
wish everyone what?
or remember Patriots Day tomorrow.
Oh, Patriots Day.
That's what the term is. 9/11.
Yeah. Every year when I Yeah. My second year,
Yeah.
third year.
Yeah.
told them all, if I get interrupted, it's because my
Okay,
son's,
then we need a motion to
my son
approve.
Yep.
didn't go to school today. I don't know why, I just didn't mention her in the hospital part.
I think we just did.
We
came out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will entertain a motion to leave closed session and re-enter open session.
Second.
Motion by Musgrave, support by Brandon to enter back into open session. Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Kyer.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 8, consideration of the approval of the firefighters' tentative bargaining agreement.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Council. So as we discussed in closed session, you have before you a memorandum which is, in effect is a tentative agreement with the Firefighters Association represented by MAF, which is the Michigan Association of Firefighters. It is a 3-year collective bargaining agreement. It has already been ratified by the firefighters union, so upon council approval tonight, if you decide to approve it, it will go into effect retroactive back to July the 1st of 2024. So the tentative agreement calls for a 3-year contract from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027. Number 2, Article 13 regarding wages of the current collective bargaining agreement would be amended so that firefighters in the union would receive a 3% pay increase to their hourly rate each July 1st for each year of the contract, so 24, 25, and 26. In addition, there would be a step increase for officers that hold the designation of EMT. While being an officer, they would receive an increase of $2.50 an hour retroactive back to July 1st of 24, and then they would receive their 3% raises in July 1st of 25 and July 1st of 26. Article 15 has to do with promotions, and this was just some contractual language that's contained in the document that we talked about in closed session. It really just outlines the procedure for promotions within the department. This is a process that was mutually agreed upon between the union and fire administration, and I think that this will help with the supervision and professionalism of the fire department, and both sides of the parties agree to that. Article 16, section 16.5, on-call stipends. So currently, there is the availability for officers to sign up on a volunteer basis to be on call. And then in the event of multiple fire calls or large-scale fire operations, they would then respond to the station or directly to the scene, whichever is appropriate. Currently, they receive $35 for displacing the cell phone call, whether they receive a call in or not. Pursuant to this new agreement, they would receive $50 for that same on-call period. And then the last section is Article 24, Section 2, has to do with their uniform allowance. And so previously, the firefighters on a quartermaster type system were allocated up to $225 per calendar year, or in our case, fiscal year, to purchase uniforms, boots, or other equipment related to fire service. Under this new agreement, they would be allocated up to $300 to purchase that same equipment. And so really, it's just a general increase. That really is the scope of the changes within the current collective bargaining agreement. And like I said, the firefighters union has already ratified.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make the motion to approve the proposed contract with the firefighters.
I'll second.
Motion by Kinnaman, support by Perkins.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I heard that time. to approve the firefighters' tentative bargaining agreement. Is there any discussion desired by council on this item? No public here. Is there any public comment desired on this item? Ms. Bigger, roll call vote, please.
Perkins.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Kyer.
Yes.
Delaney.
Yes. Motion carries. We will adjourn until our next regular meeting on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
For members of the Personnel Committee, does Tuesday evening work for a meeting?
Tuesday next week.
Yes.
Couldn't be Tuesday this week.
Be the 17th?
At 6 PM?
6 PM.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
No, no.
Just wanted to say I left a
We
challenge
don't.
coin
I can get them
on
tomorrow.
the tables.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Yep, everything's good. Thank you. Thank you for your help.
Suicide Prevention Month.
I appreciate it.
In the fire service, a lot of young men and women do pursue suicide. We just held a huge event thanks to Mr. Kinnaman in all area schools
Yeah.
at the high school, recognizing suicide awareness for first responders.
Why is that
In
flashing?
recognition of that, we got challenge points, and I want to make sure the council has.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Chief.
If you were to get one of those challenge coins like the split pieces that at this point, now we got two from the fire department. Thank you, sir.
Yes, he did. He did. And I thought, oh, how much?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should come back.
Well, actually, they
I
go,
know she called me too.
they go down there, but okay. That's all right.
Not file
It's ours. We can do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's ours.
Gary can do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that might happen.
So I think it's nice to let the DDA have some say. I think you have to be careful.
No.
You set the real bar,
I think you're asking for trouble. I think now
especially with this DDA.
Parks is gonna want to say, and then Planning's gonna want to say, and then,
Yeah, except the DDA is a slightly different program.
and the next president might say, I want to do it.
Yeah.
And then there's gonna be infighting and arguments and if somebody
We
didn't.
don't have any of those anymore.
But if somebody didn't turn in their application until after the council meeting today, that's their own fault. What?
That should not even be,
Well, yeah.
here's that, and here's this, and how much you need those.
Thank you. Okay, I need these, and I'm gonna need that minute thing. I don't know, I think that it's gonna tick people off if the DDA suggests one and the president picks a different one. Just more fighting.
That would,
So do we know why that's flashing?
nope. I guess we'll test it tomorrow and see if it's because it's in charge, although I've never seen a flash like that before.
I don't know, we'll have to see tomorrow if it's.
Question regarding the retro pay. Is that something that goes into effect for the next paycheck, or I just had a few people asking that already?
Of course you do.
And I didn't have an answer. So if I prepare the documents for Megan,
If you get it prepared prior to next pay.
then they would
Right,
be.
Debbie?
Prior, like by the end of this week.
Yeah.
And I've been talking with Megan and what expectations are on that.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the same page, but I think you two could be here to say yes.
Yeah, as long as you present something prior.
So what I'm gonna do is just actually the pay sheet that you have as adjustment, and then each person is gonna have their own sheet with what they're adjusting. And then I'll turn back to you.
I don't hear this right?
I think this is.
No, yeah, you
Oh,
can.
I can vote.
It's post election, or post.
No, it was an open, yeah, they voted.
That's why I went like this.
Oh.
I'm not supposed to hear.
Have a good evening.
Hi, Jeremy. I'll see you this, on the 25th.
Yes, we will see you, yes. Planning commission.
Yes, planning.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. I'll go get that.
I noticed,
Chicken pot.
somebody left a water bottle over there. Should I dump the rest of it
Yeah, just
out?
dump it, if you would, thank you. Are you going back to your office?
Yeah, I got a bag there.
So I'm participating in the golf on Friday afternoon. It's only 9 holes and dinner. It's for the Grand Life of Jackson County and this Christian community youth program. Didn't know if you wanted to.
I can't go off yet. I'm still on restriction for another 2 to.
Oh, I forgot that you just had surgery recently.
I can't wait to get off. Because I feel good.
Yeah.
But he said, that's fine, you're gonna feel good, but don't.
Yes, yes.
But no, I appreciate it.
Yes, yes. No, well, yes.
It's the first time they're doing it.
No, that's fine.
Numbers are a little low, and I heard about it at church, and so.
Oh.
I'm like,
Yeah.
We gotta let her back out, and then we gotta lock the door.
All right, I'll get it. I'll get it if you want to start heading up, then I'll go get that out of the fridge for you.